From the Latin existere, which means, ex means out of, and stere means to stand. Philosophically, centuries ago, going all the way back to Plato and before Plato, was the idea that there is being. Once in an Orlando conference where the whole point of
from the Latin existere,
was to deny,
which means
ex means out
I
of,
could on his
and stere means to stand.
the existence of God.
Philosophically, centuries ago, going all the way back to Plato and before Plato, was the idea
from the Latin,
philosophically,
folks,
going all the way back
God
to
does not
Plato,
exist.
Plato. Plato from the Latin, Plato from the Latin, Plato from the Latin, Plato.
In part 1 of this video series, you saw that atheism was actually the invention of the Jesuit Counter-Reformation, and that it was, and still is, applied to countries where there is a significant Protestant resistance to the rule of the Vatican, in a new world order designed to implement a global Vatican state. And you saw that even today, in officially atheist countries, the Vatican is exclusively recognized as the only religious institution, and its Theodosius Codex is implemented by its officially state-sponsored atheist governments, including the use of its inquisitions, torture and genocide. In part 2, you saw that Jesuit atheism was implemented in Russia to constitute the eastern half of the Vatican's Holy Roman Empire, or the restoration of the Reich, in a new world order, to be accomplished through World War II. And you saw that atheist Russia was originally an ally, not an enemy, of Hitler's Third Reich. You also saw that Harvard professor and atheist historian, Stephen Greenblatt openly admits the origin of modern atheism can be found with the Vatican, and the Jesuit promotion of the writings of Lucretius on the Greek atomic model of Epicurean materialism. And Greenblatt, despite his claims of atheism, openly confesses to a Luciferian spiritual encounter. In part 3, you saw that the intent of the founders of modern Jesuit atheism was fully, and intentionally, to willfully and purposefully deceive the modern public, and in part 4 you saw that it was the open confession of the founders of modern atheism, to destroy modern Western democracies and replace them with non-democratic fascist states based upon Platonic oligarchies or Jesuit socialist reductions. In part 4, you saw that the technique to achieve this deception was conducted through something the dictionary described as equivocation, and you were given an illustration of how equivocation was used to prove elephants did not exist by simply replacing the term elephant with the cognate term pachyderm, thus changing the belief system of a person, without ever changing the reality of what did or did not exist in reality. And in part 5, you saw that at the base of Roman Catholic Latin theology, is actually atheism. And the religious right is in reality, no different than the atheist left. And in fact, they are the very same people philosophically, arguing for the very same claim in science, the non-existence of God. In this video, you will see how deception is employed by New World Order Roman Reich scientists using jargon and opposite speak to spread the deception of Jesuit atheism that God does not exist, despite the actual science which in reality solved the question through science centuries ago. And the truth of the matter is, that both the atheist New World Order Reich scientists and its Latin theologians, are openly hiding this information in order to brainwash the public, the same way it has done so many times before in recent modern history, both in the Vatican's Nazi Third Reich and in the atheist Soviet Union. The only thing that has actually changed in science, is that now, the Vatican's Reich disinformationists both left and right, are parasitically using the science of the same Western democratic Protestant countries they wish to destroy, to spread their New World Order Reich propaganda. The same propaganda that has been recognized throughout Western democratic modern history as brainwashing. In other words, New World Order, Reich scientists, and Reich theologians are doing today, the very same thing they have done before, in Jesuit Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia.
time didn't exist before the Big Bang. So there is no time for God to make the universe in.
It's my view that the simplest explanation is, there is no God. No one created the universe, and no one directs our fate. This leads me to a profound realization. There is probably no heaven, and no afterlife either.
You say that science can explain the universe without the need for a creator. Well, what is that explanation? Why is there something instead of nothing?
Gravity and quantum theory cause universes to be created spontaneously out of nothing.
You write that because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. Will you tell me how that law came into existence?
Gravity is a consequence of M theory, which is the only possible unified theory. It is like saying, why is 2 plus 2, 4?
I guess simply put, do you believe in God?
God may exist, but science can explain the universe without the need for a creator. Only a very few would allow creatures like us to exist. Thus our presence selects out from this vast array only those universes that are compatible without existence. Although we are puny and insignificant on the scale of the cosmos, this makes us in a sense, the lords of creation.
been called the world's most famous atheist, Richard Dawkins. The evolutionary biologist has touched off a storm of controversy with his bestseller, The God Delusion. In it, he argues that a belief in God is irrational and religion is divisive and dangerous. Dawkins is the Charles Simonyi Professor of Public Understanding of Science at Oxford University.
I said, the worst thing that could ever happen to us is to discover that God exists. God exists. God exists. God exists.
So that moment marks the beginning of the birth of the universe. And all of the things that we see around us, every star, every planet, every living thing on the earth and in the cosmos, owes its genesis to that moment.
Many new atheists today have actually come from fundamentalist Protestant churches. What most of these unfortunate victims did not realize is that they were converted to atheism long before they became atheists, because of the atheist foundations of Latin theology, as you saw being taught by R.C. Sproul. The God of Rome's Christ Mass, which is in reality the Latin god of Epicurean materialism, is openly and admittedly non-existent. Therefore atheism is the only logical conclusion, given its definition of God. The biblical definition of God, however, which is diametrically opposed both to the Antichrist and the worship of his image commonly known as Christmas, is openly admitted to exist by the most virulent atheists on earth. But the Vatican has done a very good job of propagandizing their belief system using deception, jargon, opposite speak, infiltration and equivocation, to such an extent that the general public now believes the exact opposite of reality is in fact the truth. Their deception is now so strong, they are now even creating atheist churches, which are of course, nothing more than extensions of the current Luciferian atheist Jesuit papacy. The new atheism is not a truth movement, it is a Jesuit propaganda form designed to deceive the public and destroy the current world order, which in reality means nothing more than a biblical worldview which is opposed to a global rule by the papacy. In favor of a decrepit, deceptive Luciferianism where despite humanity's vulnerability in the universe to all its natural laws and fundamental forces, laughably declares himself to be the Lord of creation, and God. Jesuit atheism is nothing more than a cover to hide behind, to deceive atheists and promote the establishment of a global Vatican state, the exact opposite outcome most sincere atheists are hoping to see achieved. It is a tragic deception that victimizes everyone in society, from shallow Christians, Muslims and Jews, to sincere truth-seeking atheists, which in reality, constitute a much smaller minority of its actual believers, than most realize. The truth is, atheism was completely destroyed by science decades ago, both in whole and in each of its philosophical parts. There is no such thing as a scientific view of the universe, that is atheist. There is only equivocation and deception, concerning what science has actually discovered, in order to hide its implications and propagandize on behalf of the Vatican's New World Order Luciferian Jesuit atheism, in order to establish the papacy as God. In the next video, you will see how each and every famous discovery of modern science has systematically dismantled the entire philosophical basis of atheism, and led in part to the collapse of the western half of the former atheist empire, formerly known as the Soviet Union. And why now, the quote, new atheism, end quote, is in reality a last-ditch effort to revive and save the crumbling remains of a dying antiquated Jesuit propaganda form,